Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Luke's Gospel, chapter 23, and Jesus has been arrested. He spends the night with he has his last supper, and then he's arrested. Judas led them to um, the garden where he knew Jesus would be hanging out. And then he comes and he is arrested. He is then taken to the temple. And actually there were two hearings. One was with the high priest and the other one was the Sanhedrin, so that they could sort of get their story straight. And so now they're going to take him to Pilate. Okay. And this is going to be a very interesting kind of events here. You should remember that Jesus said that this is the hour of darkness here. So when you kind of question why all of this is going on, just keep that in mind, that this is the hour of darkness, and that also this is by God's decree, with the end result, we are saved. All right, so here we go. Hold on here. I have to find my oh snaps here. My screen's not sharing. Hold on. All right, let me do a little more backstory here. My screen is not sharing here, and so okay, let me try this before here. All right, Matthew. All right, so okay, I'm gonna get it together here. My screen is not sharing, and so well, okay. Oh, all right, here we go. I think I can get it here. Let me try it now. Okay. So, all right, let me try it again here. All right, here we go. Here we go. All right. All right. It says, then their whole assembly rose up before him. I'm sorry. Then their whole assembly rose up and brought him before Pilate. Pilate was sort of the governor. He was like the governor of I am not digging this here. He was the governor of the region. History tells us that he kind of was in trouble with Rome, so he has some political reasons here. And why is this not sharing here? Okay. Anyway, he has some political. He has some. I'm kind of got some stuff going on here, guys. Hold on one second. And I don't know why I'm getting such trouble here. But anyway, Pilate had some political issues that, and this is also going to play in his motivation. Okay, in one respect, he didn't care about the Jewish people. To be truthful, not a lot of people were into the Jews. And so, but they had to tolerate them. And um, okay, in Pilate's case, okay, in Pilate's case, he couldn't afford for there to be a lot of upheaval, okay, because he's already had some issues. All right. So this is you're going to see part of the reasons why he's treading lightly here. But anyway, he says, they began to accuse him, saying, we found this man subverting our nation, opposing payment of taxes to Caesar, and saying that he himself is the Messiah, a king. So kind of interesting, they threw that in there, a king, not the king. They probably would have been better saying the king, because one of the statements here is this could be this could be treasonous, and Rome didn't tolerate that. Verse 3, so Pilate asked him, are you the king of the Jews? Kind of a loaded question, because if he says yes, boom, off with his head. He answered him, you have said it. Okay, you have said it. So it's kind of a backhand way of saying yes without necessarily saying yes. It says, Pilate then told the chief priests and the crowd, I find no grounds for charging this man. Just for what he said. Think about this. Just based upon what you just said, just based upon what you said. No, notice this. I find no charge. Now notice he's going to keep saying this. Verse 5 says, but they kept insisting. He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea and from Galilee, where he started even to hear. And when Pilate heard this, he asked if this man was a Galilean. Now remember, Judea was south in Israel, and then the Galilee was north. Okay, so he says, finding that he was under Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him to Herod, who was also in Jerusalem during those days. Now remember, this is the Passover time, so this is why probably Herod was in Jerusalem. And to show you this, that we're going to see later, they didn't even like each other. So really what Pilate is trying to do is just kind of like, I don't even want to deal with this, because we know it's bogus. He knows the chief priests are lying, but at the same time, he don't want the waves that they were constantly bringing towards him. So now Herod, he sends them to Herod. Okay, verse 8, Herod was very glad to see Jesus, and for a long time he had wanted to see him because he had heard about him and was hoping to see some miracle performed by him. So he kept asking him questions, but Jesus did not answer him. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him, and then Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt, mocked him, dressed him in a brilliant robe, and sent him back to Pilate. And that very day, Herod and Pilate became friends. Previously, they had been hostile towards each other. So, what is kind of amazing is you see these enemies who now are friends. You saw the same thing with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. The Sadducees, they never really got along, but they kind of hooked up to try to get Jesus. But now this still doesn't solve Pilate's problem. I don't even know why they became friends over this. I'm not clear as to, okay, he sent him, other than the fact that Herod basically said, I don't find anything wrong with this man. Verse 13, Pilate called the chief priests, the leaders of the people, and said to them, you have brought this man to me as one who subverts the people. But in fact, after examining him in your presence, I have found no grounds to charge this man with the things you accuse him. Neither has Herod, because he sent him back to us. Clearly, he has done nothing to deserve death. So right here again, third witness that he's an innocent man. He said, therefore I will whip him and then release him. And again, the flogging, the Roman flogging. So the Jews had a flogging which you could only lay 39 hits, stripes, okay? What they call stripes, but hits. The Romans didn't have such. They could lay as many stripes or whippings on you as one. And then they would use this, what they call a cat o' nine tail, in which it had three stripes. And in each of the three stripes, it's like a leather belt, maybe, right? So you had the handle, but then three like leather belts, and then embedded in each of the leather belts was like bone, metal, something like that. So in reality, when you're getting hit once, you're actually getting hit twice. The bone and the fragments that was embedded in there would rip your back out. So there was really no reason. This was designed for criminals. This was designed to be torturous, just as the crucifixion itself. It was designed to torture. And this was kind of designed to torture hardened criminals, those who rebelled against Rome. Something that was done like hideous. So again, Pilate is trying to appease the people, and in a sense you can say being unfair, but I don't know if Jesus could have been considered a Roman citizen. The Apostle Paul was a Roman citizen, and they were getting ready to beat him, and Paul says, you get ready to beat a Roman citizen right here. Then they became extremely afraid. So, but either way, it just doesn't make sense why he was doing it, other than he's trying to appease him. Like, okay, if I whip him, then I might appease him. And again, it won't. Therefore, he says, I will have him whipped and then release him. For according to the festival, he had to release someone to them. Now, again, this is in brackets, so as you can see, it's question if it was in other manuscripts. Verse 18. Then they all cried out together, take this man away, release Barabbas to us. He had been thrown into prison for rebellion that had taken place in the city and for murder. So get this. So remember, the whippings were for people like Barabbas. He caused an uprising, a rebellion, and then in that he committed murder. So all of this that Jesus is experiencing, Barabbas is the one who should have been experiencing this. He deserved it. He actually deserved this. Verse 20. Pilate wanted to release Jesus, address them again, but they kept shouting, crucify him, crucify him. The third time he said to him, why? What has this man done wrong? I have found no grounds for a death penalty. Therefore, I will have him whipped and then release him. But they kept up the pressure, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified, and their voices won out. So Pilate decided to grant their demands, and they released the one they were asking for, who had been thrown into prison for rebellion and murder, but they handed Jesus over to their will. So again, this is a very sad, because think about this. Here is, just so remember, the Pharisees knew that Jesus was innocent. So it shows you their heart. And it shows you the cowardness of Pilate. He knew he was innocent. But in order to appease them, then they let a known murderer go. A known murderer. Verse 26 says, and as they led him away, they seized Simon, a Cyrenian, who was coming in from the country and laid the cross on him to carry behind Jesus. Now, Jesus probably was weak from the beatings, the whippings. And by law, well, they could compel you, right? In other words, they didn't have to ask, hey, what are you doing right now? You got time? They would just force you carry the cross. And by the cross, it could have been the cross beam that so the big cross beam, and then when they would get it to the place, then they would lay that cross beam and nail it together. Verse 27, a large crowd of people followed him, including women who were mourning and lamenting him. But turning to them, Jesus said, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and your children. Look, the days are coming when they will say, the women without children, the wombs that have never borne, and the breasts that have never nursed are fortunate. Then he began to say to the mountains, and they will begin to say to the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry? Now, the women, and we'll probably see this later, were those who followed Jesus, Mary Magdalene, his mother, and other women. And it's interesting that he kind of focuses and tells them, don't weep for me, but the days are coming for you. Now, it depends on how you want to look at this. Another prophecy, that this prophecy has what's called a near and a far fulfillment. The near fulfillment would be in AD 70. Again, it was a terrible time for Jerusalem. The Roman general Titus leveled the city. And then the ultimate is during the 7-year tribulation period, when, again, it would be rough for the Jews. Okay, rough for the Jews. And if you remember, too, in Matthew 24, he says, pray. He kind of predicts this for them and says, pray that your flight may not be in the wintertime or on the Sabbath day, for then there would be great tribulation period, such as never heard. Okay. Again, I and of course it's kind of hard because we're not really capturing. This was a very, very intense time. The very, very intense time. All right, I'll probably come back to this, but as it says, two other criminals who were also led away to be executed with him. When they arrived at the place called the Skull, they crucified him there, along with the criminals, one on the right side and the other one on the left. And then he said, Father, forgive them, because they do not know what they are doing. This is interesting here. Now, I'm thinking about this because the way Luke is telling it, and that's why the way Luke is telling it. I will say this, though, when he says, Father, forgive them because they do not know what they are doing. This is interesting because we see this echoed by Stephen when he is martyred. As they are stoning him, he said, Father, lay not this sin to their charge. And then we also see Paul praying the same for those who had deserted him during his first trial. That's in 2 Timothy chapter 4. But think about this now. This is a very interesting, a powerful statement here. Forgive them because they don't know what they are doing. So just stop and think about that for a moment. He's praying this after He had been falsely accused, falsely arrested, horribly treated, beaten, whipped, Roman style, condemned when a guilty man got free, and now he's being crucified. We'll get to the crucifixion, how they did it next time. But then he prays this. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Okay, we'll get into this next time in the next study. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome, and I'll see you in the next study.